Steve?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, you're louder. Raquel, could you try increasing the volume on your end? Because yours seems to be a little bit lower. Steve is coming in a little bit louder.
On mine?
You're perfect, Steve.
Oh, that's good.
You're perfect. Hang on one second, we're checking Raquel's audio.
Yeah, I upped mine a little bit for you.
That's perfect. Yeah, that sounds much better, thank you. You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Great.
Oh,
All right,
you're
just
gonna
one
love
more
it.
session, guys. Susan,
Thank
you have my
you.
number.
אז אני אספר לך בינתיים, אביטל, שזאת קהילה בפלורידה, בבוקה רטון,
Okay,
קהילה שביקרתי בה בעבר, והם הזמינו אצלי 4 שיעורים על השירה של ה-7 באוקטובר, וזה השני שבהם. התחלנו בשבוע שעבר. שלום, רבי לילה, good to see you.
Hello, everybody. How are you?
Okay, so Leila, I wanted to introduce you to Avital Liman. She's one of the poets, and I took the
wonderful.
liberty to invite her. And I was thinking to make that happen for every one of our upcoming classes, to
Oh, it's
invite
so
one of the
wonderful.
poets.
Wow, how beautiful. Thank you. Shalom, shalom.
okay.
Wonderful. Okay, everybody in Temple, hello. To our Lunch and Learn friends, hello, everybody. Let's gather around the table. We have such a wonderful learning session today with Rachel. And what a gift to be able to have one of the poets here with us, Avital. And I will turn this over to Rachel, but I would love if everyone could come on in, grab a seat. I'll be monitoring the virtual chat, and Rashina is in person, will be monitoring the in-person questions if there are any. So thank you, Rashina, and thank you everybody for joining us today.
So we are waiting a couple of more minutes until everybody settled down, I think, at Bet El, right? That's the idea?
I think you can begin there. I think most of the people are here, so we're good.
Okay, so
Thank you.
Shalom, good morning for you. Far away Florida, from here Israel. You guys have moved already to daylight saving. I hope you are adjusting to your new time frame. And we have not yet moved, which created a situation by which the time difference is not the 7 hours that we are used to with Florida, but 6 hours, which actually makes me personally very happy because I don't have to teach until late in the evening, and I can have dinner with my husband at a decent hour. So for these 3 weeks of before we also move at the end of the month, just a few days before Pesach, it's a little bit more comfortable, but I'm not complaining. I'm fine even at the late hour. So why don't you all take your drink, take your copy of the source sheets, settle down so we can get started. I have a special announcement to make in case you haven't heard it, the people online, the people in the room, that I took the liberty this morning as I was getting ready for class, reviewing the poetry, which I always do in time, that I said, hey, why don't I call Avital, see if she is free, and invite her to join our class. So Avital, thank you for taking the time to be with us. And I will start the class in a few minutes, in 1 minute or so, and I will introduce you a little bit more before we come to your poem. Is that good? Okay, so welcome again, and here we start with the second session out of 4 that you have graciously invited me to do, sharing with you poetry that was created in Israel in the wake of October 7th. I have tried, together with Rabbi, to organize the content of the sessions, to go for the first 3 sessions more or less chronologically, more or less the first days, weeks that followed, and then after that a little bit later into it. And we will conclude with poetry that was written around Pesach time. That will be our 4th session. I must say that I have the feeling that I would like to wait until people settle down. It's sort of, I don't know, a little bit disturbing to me to see people still standing and taking their drinks. So I'd rather wait another minute until the class is settled, if that is okay by you.
Okay.
Mhm. And while we are waiting for everybody to settle, I normally, when I give a series of sessions, when we come to the second, the third, and the fourth session, I open it with the question, we parted here last week, and I wonder if during that week a question came up, an insight, a thought, something that is lingering since last week that you would like me to address, that you would like to share with us. So anybody, whether in the room at the Lunch and Learn or back home on your Zoom systems, if there is anything that is lingering from last week, from our first meeting, and you would like me to address, please let me know by raising your hand, raising your digital hand. Anything goes. I will give it a few seconds to see if we get any such comments. And if we do not, yes, I see a hand raised back at the Lunch and Learn at Beth El. So if you would like to speak up, sir, and I cannot see your name from here, but maybe you will let us know. And still too far, or I am too old to read it. Yeah.
My name is Saul Zeib, Sherwood Zeib. After the first session, I felt like all the songs are very, a lot of sorrow, a lot of anger, a lot of. I didn't find any hope in any of the songs.
And you are right. First of all, they are poems,
Yes,
and
any of
not
the
songs. They are poems.
Um,
What I'm asking you to do, could you repeat your name?
yeah, my name is Saul Zeib.
Yeah, and I understand that with the pain and angst that we have all been feeling for the last year and a half, there is a rush to find some hope. But we have created 4 sessions, and I want to sort of recreate the feeling. You will find hope in some of the poems, even today in one of the poems, but we will not rush it. We will not pretend and whitewash or blue wash or whatever the atmosphere in Israel just to create a better feeling for either us or for people abroad. The situation is painful. The situation is sad. There is still a lot of concern. There's still a lot of worry. There is some pain and it will come, but laat. Take your time and we will get there. I promise you. And thank you for that, Soul. Anybody else? Anybody else with a concern, with a question, with an insight? This is a relatively small group, so there is much more space and time for your own reflections if you want to share them. So let me know if there is something in the room, as I do not see all the people. I was fortunate enough to see Saul, but I do not see the other hands. If there is anything, let me know. The people on Zoom I can see, so I don't see any. Yeah?
I wonder if maybe sometimes when everyone's kind of like coming in before we start, we just like take like 3 deep breaths. I think that might like clear the space and get us into the session. Kind of leaving behind where we came from. So would you be okay with us just like closing our eyes?
Absolutely. Do you want to lead that? Absolutely. I didn't want to suggest something like that,
I
but
feel like the energy in the room is a little.
I am totally fine with that. And thank you for suggesting. And this can always happen in small groups like this. Go ahead, please lead it.
Okay, so if we can just take a second and kind of ground ourselves and put our feet on the ground and just settle into our seat and close our eyes and take a deep breath in and out. Down, in. Out. One more time in. Out. Before you open your eyes, if you are comfortable, just putting your hands over your heart. Take a final breath in. And out. If you're ready, just take your time opening your eyes to all that light. Thank you.
תודה רבה. Thank you so much for doing that, because indeed our topic, our theme when reading these poems needs a little bit of separation from normal life. And as you come in from whatever you have at your homes, in your shopping, stuff that you have done on the way, it is good to create this separation and shape the space that we are in a way that is more appropriate. Having said that, let me pull today's PowerPoint on the screen for you, and we will get started in a minute. So, as you can see, we are now in the second session, session 2, and I gave it a title, As Days Go By. Although it's not exactly accurate chronologically, and there is a little bit of a mix-up. The poems I have chosen to share with you today are the following. Mothers by Osnat Eldar. Nowadays, one has to check by Avital Lehman, who is with us, and I'm so grateful for her for joining us. And Saul, look, in the third poem, Prayer, by Avital Nadler, you will see that there is a voice of hope there. And then come the poem Cleared for Publication. I suggest that we will spend a little bit more time on that poem than on the others, as it references an ancient text and requires a little bit of more detailed learning. And then the same poet, the El Rodriguez Garcia, A Fallen Soldier. We will try to look at all 5 poems, but as always, I say, my business is not to rush. My business is not to make a check-off list, is not to cover the poems. I'd much rather uncover them, go slowly. And if we find with your comments and conversation that we might need more time, then we will take more time. There is absolutely no need to rush. You can see on the center side of the right-hand side of my slide the picture of Osnat Eldar. Her poem is going to be the first one we are reading today, and it is called Mothers, Imahot. By now, I have established a meaningful relationship, personal one, away from the digital screens with Osnat Eldar. But when we started, I did not know her. My first meeting with her was in the digital world. I found her poem on Facebook. But later on, we established a relationship. We have met a few times already, and I learned to enjoy both her personality and, of course, her poetry. Many of her poems got into the anthology Shiva that we are referring to a lot in our classes. Osnat lives in a small town, sort of in the northern half of Israel, but not very far up north, not the places that have been evacuated, not the Lebanese border. She lives in Zichron Yaakov. She is a Reform rabbi of a small community in Zichron Yaakov, the name of which is Sulam Yaakov, Jacob's ladder. I don't want to spend too much time by introducing her. Rather, let us spend more time with the poem. This is also an opportunity for me, and we have done a little bit of that in the previous class as well, to keep reminding you that artistic reaction to October 7th is not limited in Israel to the written word. It is also apparent in graphics, in painting, in sculpture, etc. So this is a painting by Ya'ara Eshet, who gave me a permission to use her art in my sessions. And you may want to know that when I offered compensation, I offered to pay for the right. She said, don't pay me, send a donation to the rebuilding of Kibbutz Nachal Oz. So we did that. So here's a painting that shows you these hands that are aspiring up but are rooted in the land. And I'm putting now the original Ivrit Hebrew of Osnat Eldar's poem, Mothers. This is a relatively longer poem than some of those we have been reading last time, and it is spread over 2 slides. We will do one at a time. You know enough about me already that I always read the Hebrew first, then the English, then comes the discussion. Since I have met Osnat many times and had time to have conversations with her and to find out about her writing, her creativity, she told me that in the first couple of weeks after October 7, she could not write. And nothing came. She was blocked. She was muted. She had no words, but she kept keeping next to her bed a notebook and a pen or a pencil, because she found that maybe at night, if she wakes up before she falls asleep, a thought, an idea, an image may come to mind, and she would want to scribble them down, and the poem will come later. She told me that Imahot mothers did not come that way. Just one night she started feeling their presence and they gave her words to start creating. So for Osnat Eldar, this is the first poem she had written after October 7th, and it is a few weeks later. Imahot. בלילות הן מתאספות אחת אחת. זו שביתה נחטפה ותמונתה המגואלת בדם לא נותנת מנוח, זו שבנה נפל בקרב, זו שילדיה יישארו לעד בממד הקטן בפאתי הבית בקיבוץ, זו שנשארה דמומה בצידו השני של הקו חורטת בגופה את הזוועות, מדי פעם היא לחשה לו עולה, אני אוהבת אותך, אני איתך, אני כאן, הלו, זו שלא הספיקה להיפרד, זו שאוחזת בשבריר של סרטון המראה שהוא חי, זו שהתעוררה בשבת וידיעת המוות נבטה בתוכה. אסנת אלדר, Mothers. They are gathering at night, one by one. She whose daughter was abducted and her blood-stained picture doesn't allow her any peace. She whose son fell in battle. She whose children remain forever in the little safe room in the corner of the house on the kibbutz. She who remained mute on the other end of the line, scratching the horrors into her skin. She who whispered from time to time to him or to her, I love you, I'm with you, I'm here, hello. She who wasn't able to say goodbye. She who is holding onto the fragment of a film clip showing him alive. She who woke up on Shabbat with the knowledge of death germinating within her. As we are looking again, and I know that you are hearing this for the first time, and for me, I have had a conversation with this text many times already. It doesn't become easier, but it helps me to help you see how it's structured. Oftentimes, when we read a poem, the voice we are hearing is that of the poet, or a persona within the poem that is very close to the poet. And in this particular poem, the voice of the poet are there at the very beginning. They are gathering at night one by one, sort of describing herself at night as all these images, voices, splits of stories, little video clips that you could see on the screen, you as well as us, the things you hear on the radio, a bit of a conversation overheard between two people, maybe even in shul, maybe one of her congregants, and each one of them is extremely short. It's just a splinter of an experience. You don't hear the whole story, and you have to somehow put them together. So and they are all mothers. This is a woman who is a mother of two daughters who are safe. And what she's doing for us, she's opening the gate for us to see all those less fortunate than herself mothers. So when you see that image of the young soldier woman being dragged to Gaza with stained clothing, blood-stained, etc., do you remember that she has a mother that is looking at that as well, not only you? When you hear, like we did for day after day, cleared for publication, and then the names of the soldiers who have fallen are read, do we always remember beyond the shining face of the soldier who is no more, to think about the people behind, in this case, the mother? Then when they told us all those stories about people who were stuck in their quote-unquote safe rooms for hours, and some were saved and some were stuck there forever, and some were abducted, but they had relatives elsewhere. They might have had a mother elsewhere with her children living on the kibbutz, an older person living in another part of Israel, and she was communicating by phone, and then he stopped, and she cannot offer any help, and help is not coming. And look at the only help that can be sent over the WhatsApp message or the phone. I love you, I'm with you, I'm here. There is a subtle difference here between the Hebrew and the English, because the Hebrew can give you the gender of the person addressed. So the first one, I love you, is Ani ohevet otcha. That's a woman speaking to a son, a boy. And then I'm with you is Ani itach. That's somebody speaking to a girl. So in the Hebrew, you can create these multiple voices, and then the gender doesn't matter anymore. I'm here, and then that unanswered call, hello, and no reaction. And then there are those who were not able to communicate or to see the picture, who didn't have a chance to say goodbye, who are hanging on to a clip, not even sure that it's their own son who is seen there. And all those who woke up that Shabbat morning not being able to communicate, but having a sense of the disaster that Osnat calls here knowledge of death. So she gathered, if you wish, this practically almost a minion here in her room at night, as she is probably not able to sleep. And then with that, we move to the next part of the poem, and let's listen again to the original Hebrew and only then to the English. בלילות בחדרי החשוך הן נודדות במעגלים, שמוטות כתפיים חסרות מנוחה, תרופות שינה, אמהות. לו יכלו היו מתחלפות עם הילד או הילדה נכונות לשבי או למוות, אמהות. עוד לא מתורגלות בנדידה. בלילות הן באות אליי אחת אחת. אני מחבקת אותן בחמלה, בגעגוע, סופגת לגופי את רגשות האשם, את חוסר האונים, את התהום, ומלטפת בדממה את התואר האימהי החדש שנכפה עליהן. At night in my darkened room they are wandering in circles, drooped shoulders, restless, sleep-crazed mothers. If only they could change places with the boy or the girl, ready for captivity or death. Mothers, not yet used to wandering. They come to me at night one by one. I am hugging them with compassion, with longing, absorbing into my body the feeling of guilt, the helplessness, the abyss, and caressing silently their new maternal title imposed on them. So one of the switches, I would say, between the first part of the poem that we have seen on the first slide and the second one is that here we have a clearer articulation of the poetic voice of the person who is writing it. They are all gathered in the room, and now she is imagining them walking in circles. She can even get into their mind. She knows that each and every one of them would willingly change places with her child, go into captivity, die, as long as the child, the daughter or the son could be saved. And they are not, and this is one of the marks of the time, that this is pretty early in the events, not yet used to wandering. They are not yet used to their new situation. The mother of a hostage, the mother of a dead, killed, murdered child. And now the imaginary, impossible to really give, but trying at least, hugging them with compassion, with longing. Look at the sense of guilt that is always apparent when you have been spared and the other one next to you was not and is suffering. Absorbing into the body the feeling of guilt, the helplessness to help, that abyss of the missing child. And now the last act to me is very beautiful. Caressing silently their new maternal title imposed on them. And to me, the missing word, the word she is not willing to utter, that scary word, bereaved mother, Em Shakula in Hebrew, is not uttered in this poem, but it's here. The silence of that missing word is here. So from her own room, from her own sleepless night, Osnat Eldar is able to bring closer to herself the voices, the stories, the video clips, all those fragments that have been part of our life, day in, day out, hour in, hour out, in those first weeks after October 7th. Let me see if any of you would like to address what we have seen by a question or a comment. I am more than willing to take your comments. If there is anything in the room, please go ahead.
Story, I'm struck by the raw humanity. I'm a mom, probably start crying, but I'm also impressed she's a rabbi. So whether you're a rabbi or a Rebbitzin, a Rebbitzin.
She's not a Rebbitzin. She's not the wife of a rabbi. She's a rabbi herself.
No, she's a rabbi, but what I'm saying is, no matter who you are in that kind of clergy, all of a sudden, this is not a 90-year-old who passed away. This is not someone was sick. This is all of a sudden a whole nation with fairly, mostly young people who were perished because of the terrorist act. And I know from 9/11, I know from other incidences that have happened that when that happens, your whole state, country, city, wherever you are, is numb. And as a rabbi, the idea that you now have to be at funerals or have to caress these people with compassion, it's not just your family, it's overwhelming. And I know as an American Jew, it was overwhelming. I can't imagine being in Israel. You know, I can't imagine being in such a small country with such a large amount of people and that kind of act of terror. I mean, I was around for 9/11, and I was still a mom then, but it just shows her humanity. And then also the idea of, oh gosh, you know, I have to hug these people, you know, obviously people are giving hugs, but
Yeah,
I
I
hug
hear you. I hear you. Thank you so much for sharing this. And are you a rabbi yourself?
no.
No. I'll tell you why. Because I can recall very clearly when I first read this poem in class. A few days after I found it, no, actually a couple of weeks until we got permission from Osnat, until I got in touch with her. And the congregation I presented it to, the audience, had a few rabbis, women rabbis in the audience. And they went like, oh, but it could be in my congregation. It could be her new congregation, the need to hold all these disasters within your congregation. And indeed, you're absolutely right. The fact that she's a rabbi here and a person who needs to give care at time of loss, as rabbis would, has an additional meaning in it. And thank you for making that clear to yourself, to us, to everybody. Thank you for your comment. Anybody else? If you had Osnat in the room right now, would you want to tell her something? Would you like to ask her something? I will try to bring her next time. Yeah.
And Anita has a
Yeah.
her question.
I found myself extremely, I don't think touched is the word, extremely upset by this poem. Because I'm a mother, and I realized suddenly that with all of the talk about the hostages and the people returning, that I never put myself in the place of one of these mothers. It's very difficult. And this is in a country where almost no one was spared. A family member, a friend, a child of a friend.
Yeah, your internet froze a little bit there at the Lunch and Learn. Are you back now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that. And I realize, because I have seen it on other occasions, I cannot read your name clearly, so I just say, ma'am. I have seen that. It doesn't help. It's still too small for me to read from it. Anita. So thank you for that. And I know what happens in these moments of realization. So I can imagine how you feel. And I want to share something with you. I came back from a 5-day trip to Budapest, Hungary, yesterday, where we launched a Hebrew-Hungarian version of the anthology Shiva. And I have done lots of launching here in Israel, one together with Avital, and I've been teaching my classes for a year and a half since October 7th. So I sort of lost touch with the experience of people who are exposed to this for the first time. And in the last 5 days, Anita, I have seen Anita's one after the other choking with these poems because they are seeing them for the first time. So I know it's hard, and thank you for sharing and being transparent about it. as we are going to the next poem, which will be the poem by Avital, so I would like to introduce her to you. And it seems like the polite, ordinary thing to do, but it was very difficult for me to find Avital. So the ability to introduce her took a long time. Let me tell you what happened. I found her poem online, but it was the kind of find that somebody shared and then another person shared and then another person shared, and I tried to walk my way back to the original and figure out who is this woman and where is her website or Facebook page or email address, and nothing. Nothing. The poem appeared on an internet site called Gluya, and I had in my class the head of Gluya studying with me at the Hartman Institute in the summer, Sarah, and she didn't know. The poem was on her site and she didn't have Avital's contact information. And I was miserable because, first of all, I loved her poem from the first time. And second of all, I wanted it in the anthology, but I couldn't do it without her permission. So I remembered, I don't know when it was, but many months into it, something that my mom of blessed memory had told me, that if you are looking for something, tell it to everybody, and then somebody will know. So I started mentioning it even to classes like in Florida, where there was not a chance, and still. And then in one of the classes, a person raised their hand and said, Rachel, I can see that you are upset. I don't know how to find her, but you leave it with me. I will find her for you. And she did. I don't know what she had done, but she did. And you know, it says something about the days we are living, that somebody could feel my stress and pain and sense of, I want so much for her poem to be included. And then I got to her and we spoke on the phone, and I asked you, Avital, who are you? And how did you come to write this? Will you unmute yourself and tell everybody in class what you told me?
Okay. I'm a retired teacher, kindergarten teacher, worked for 41 years, and always protected the kids from information. I always told parents, please don't let them see TV. It's not necessary. And when we had to teach children how to protect themselves, I censored the information that we had to teach, because I thought kids have to be protected and to live like very much with innocence. And when the terrible day started, I went to the Dead Sea. I'm not a poet. Yes, I'm a teacher. And I went to the Dead Sea because I heard that they were evacuated to the hotels there. And I started to build a kindergarten for the kids. There were many, many kids there. And we worked with the kids, and the kids came to me with these terrible phrases like, you know, my father was murdered, my brother too. You know, they play with the car and they say things like this, by the way. And then a girl told me, how can I know that I'm dead? She said.
Let us stop here, read the poem, and then we'll come back
And the
to
poem, I wrote it for friends. I have a group of friends. We are poetry lovers. And I wrote it to this group. And one of this group asked me if it's okay that she will put it in her Facebook. I said, okay. And that's how it, yeah.
And this is why I couldn't find her.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did. And let us go to the poem, which is, Avital, a jewel, a real jewel to cherish. So give me a moment to put it properly on the screen for everybody to see. The poem is called עכשיו צריך לבדוק, and you can see Avital's name on the bottom in Hebrew, Avital Liman. במילון המפונים בים המלח, היא אוספת יפה יפה את שיער הבובה בסרט. קושרת מנקה מקטרות מנצנץ על הסרט. ואז שואלת, תגידי, אני חיה? ואיך יודעים שאני מתה? מה הייתם עונים לילדה בת 4? רק מי שחי יכול להתחבק. בואי נתחבק ונראה אם אנחנו בחיים. אחר כך היא אומרת, גם מחר בבוקר נבדוק. Nowadays one has to check by Avital Liman. In the evacuees hotel by the Dead Sea, she carefully gathers the doll's hair with a ribbon. She attaches a sparkling pipe cleaner to the ribbon. And then she asks, tell me, am I alive? And how would they know if I were dead? What would you say to a 4-year-old girl? Only the living can hug. Come, let's hug and see if we are alive. Later she says, tomorrow morning, let us check again. And I will want you to take a deep breath, and I will want you to address this, but let me step out. And let me, rather than speak to you, speak to Avital. Because I have spent so many months before I found you talking about the poem, imagining who you are. I was saying to audiences, I don't know who she is. She may be a social worker, a psychologist. I remember teaching a class in which we had quite a few top-notch psychologists, and they say, what a brilliant answer. Nothing like that in the books of what do you say to a 4-year-old. And then when I finally found you, I said, Avital, who are you? And she said, I'm a kindergarten teacher, a retired kindergarten teacher. And suddenly it became so clear and so simple and so like, of course. But do you understand? Now I'm addressing all of you and not Avital. What she was just telling us, I'm a retired kindergarten teacher. I heard that there were children in the hotels in the Dead Sea. I live in Ra'anana, and I went there to start a kindergarten. And then this happened. And then she has the liberty to ask us, what would you say to a 4-year-old? And then she comes up with this brilliant answer, let's hug. But it's not enough for the child, it's enough for today. But it will need to be repeated tomorrow. And how many more times do you think, Avital, will this child need for the hug to be checked and repeated again and again?
I think that the kids know something that we don't know, that people really don't die, because they always said, don't worry, they will come back. And I feel after so many years with kids that they know things that we forgot or that we don't know. But they feel that that death is not the last station.
That there is something after. Did you keep in touch with any of these families or children after the work was done?
For a while, because there were other problems there, and I fought for them because of, I will tell you once, it was really a chaos, very chaotic there. There was no medical care for the people, no kupat cholim, no. So I had to go and fight for them because they could not fight for themselves. They were so weak.
Broken.
Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for what you have done beyond the fact that you are now with us. And let me give you a chance, dear friends over there, to address Avital, if you would. Yes, please, go ahead.
I wondered if Avital is comfortable reading it herself.
The Hebrew?
However she would
Please,
like,
in
how,
Hebrew.
in Hebrew, yeah, how she wrote it.
אביטל, את מוכנה לקרוא להם את השיר בקולך?
כן, כן.
אני אשים אותו על המסך.
תודה.
אני אשים אותו על המסך. What a lovely idea. Thank you for doing this. בבקשה.
עכשיו צריך לבדוק. במלון המפונים בים המלח, היא אוספת יפה יפה את שיער הבובה בסרט. קושרת מנקה מקטרות מנצנץ על הסרט. ואז שואלת, תגידי, אני חיה? ואיך יודעים שאני מתה? מה הייתם עונים לילדה בת 4? רק מי שחי יכול להתחבק. בואי נתחבק, ונראה אם אנחנו בחיים. אחר כך היא אומרת, גם מחר בבוקר נבדוק.
Thank you, Avital. Thank you for having that idea, asking Avital to read it. I should have invited her to do that, and I'm grateful for this. Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah.
At home or in the room? Yeah, at the lunch and learn. Go ahead. Just turn the camera so we can see the person.
Oh, that's okay. I think it'll follow your voice
Okay.
if you're loud. Yeah.
Okay.
good.
My name is Pat Ziv. I'm just amazed and love the answer for a few reasons, but one of which is she almost asked her permission, let me touch you and hug you. And I don't know of a better answer.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else?
I feel like I'm the only one talking today. 4-year-olds are very concrete. So even, you could sit there and come with some philosophical thing, but I think the concreteness of, people who are alive give each other a hug. And I don't know one little kid who doesn't love a hug. And I don't know, I think when someone is a kindergarten teacher, that's their first teacher. So obviously, Avital always had that, where it's not just that you're learning your alphabets, but you're getting a hug, or that the teacher encourages you, or they tell you how to sit down and cross the legs so you can all follow. So I think the idea of giving a hug is such a nice concrete way of saying, okay, we're alive. Oh, and tomorrow, oh, we'll do. And I think all little kids should be hugged. Maybe unless they're naughty, they should always be hugged. So the idea that maybe they don't have this is, and here's someone giving them a hug, maybe they don't have a grandparent or they're disconnected from their family. It's just great.
Thank you so much. Rabbi, you wanted to say something or ask? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Avital, thank you so much. What a gift to have you here and to hear you read it, read your beautiful words. I'm curious if you could share with all of us just briefly, like what walking into that space for the first time and just sort of bring to life for us, even more so than in the poetry, where I feel like the hug to the child, not just to give to them, but also what the child is giving to you as the teacher and to the adult who's there too, both navigating this uncertainty and trying to understand the place that you find yourself. I'm curious if you could just sort of bring to life for us what those first few days and weeks were like. And, it's a temporary space. They're all coming from trauma into a temporary space. And what I love about this in terms of the hug is that it's sort of like that first sense of routine and of quote unquote normalcy in the midst of such uncertainty and chaos, that warmth and that embrace is a restorative, it's a restoring of emotion, of feeling. And I would just love for us all to sort of hear from you since you were there.
I can tell you that I was very disappointed to arrive there because I had a very precise idea how it has to be, like a small group, maybe 35 children, like I'm used to, and that I will give them the daily routine that will quiet them, that will give them the feeling of stability. But it was not like this at all. There were buses with kids that arrived all day. And there was one person in the entrance that wrote the telephone numbers of the parents if the child will ask them how they could contact them. So children were left there. And all the time arrived a lot of games and boxes and boxes and trucks with a lot of things. And I told them, please leave everything outside. But I could not. So I tried to make a small group near a table where I tell stories and the children create something after the stories, like little sculptures, little puppets, and they paint. So it was like this, but there was always a kid with an iPad that plays something near us. I tell the story, and it makes this noise. It was chaotic, but I tried to do my best, and I hope that something came out of it, you know. Maybe near lunchtime was more quiet and I could connect better with the kids, but it's not how it was supposed to be. It was, they gave us the biggest hall of the hotel. And it was not supposed to be like this.
But it was, and you made the best of it.
I did what I could, and it continued. I was there more than a month. It was not changed, and the Ministry of Education was nowhere. There was someone from the Ministry of Education that checked what we are doing, but nobody. It was all volunteers there. Nothing from the state. Nothing. But maybe I should not tell.
In my sessions, you are allowed. There is no censorship.
It was really. It was. I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed. In our country, we should know better. We should be prepared for everything here.
And we were not.
We're
even
not.
in that area. Thank you so much. Before we leave this poem, and I will try to do one more, I'd like to suggest something and sort of speak to rabbi, to people who are not necessarily rabbis or clergy, but connected to text. What happened in the conversation between the kindergarten teacher and the child is a very deep need to understand what does it mean to be alive. And for a 4-year-old, what was offered was the concrete hug. But many, many, many years ago, over 1,000, there was another Jew who needed to understand the difference between the living and the dead. He was called King David, who wrote Psalms. And he has this line, Lo hametim yehallelujah. It's not the dead who can pray to God and praise God. Sort of, if I want to know that I'm alive, I will pray. And if I can pray, it means that I'm alive. So the need to prove to yourself that you are alive, that you are with it, is something so basically human, and Avital just gave it the 4-year-old interpretation. And let's hug, and we'll hug tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Tודה Avital, and let me turn to the next poem. And since I promised Saul some hope today, we will go.
I got my hope. By listening to Avital, I have my hope. I don't know
Yeah.
if you heard.
Okay, so in the next poem, which is called Prayer, the poet is referring to an Israeli children's song. So I want to show you the song that it refers to. I will only go to the English. It's a sort of a lullaby. It was written many, many, many years ago, before October 7th. It's not a contemporary thing. Leah Goldberg passed away in 1970, which is like many years ago, and she did not write it on her deathbed. So the poem is really from all time. It's still sung in Israel. There is a beautiful tune to it. And I'm just going to read it and not spend time on the song right now because I want to get to the poem. Night by night watches the moon at the garden flowers bloom. At the hyacinth buds in our tiny garden, night by night watches the moon. And the moon says to the clouds, give a drop more to the garden grounds. Let the hyacinth bloom in our tiny garden. So says the moon to the cloud. Came the rain and in my window rang, for the flower in my garden's merry song it sang. And the hyacinth answered in joy and merriment to the downpour that on my window rang. I will stop here. What I want you to see is exactly the words that we were using earlier, is like the normalcy of every night. The moon is up, mom is singing a lullaby. In the morning the flower will bloom. Everything is steady, stable, normal. And then comes the poem, and the poet again is Avital, but is another Avital Nadler. And she calls it Prayer. When you return, we will sit just the two of us in the shower. You in the gentle water, I facing you. Will gently wash your hair, erase all the memories. Will sing to you the song of the hyacinth and of the rain tickling in the window. I will carefully clean between your toes every speck from the tunnels. I will tell you about the moon that shone so many nights when you weren't here. I will wipe my tears off your face. The gentle water will wash them away. I will braid your hair, dress you in pajamas, just the two of us in bed, and the caring hug, and hope, and love, and fear, and prayer, that there will never be a next time. I think it takes a few moments of reading into the poem before you realize what the poetic voice, who is a mother speaking to a daughter, and look at how it goes gradually. First of all, when you return. So the prayer is not actually for the daughter to return. There is an assurance that she will return, and indeed we were fortunate enough to see a certain number of the young women hostages returning alive and hopefully more or less okay. When you return, the imagination, the girls are back there in the tunnels of Hamas for over 480 some days. And all the mother can express here is a prayer. First of all, the assurance that she will return. And then the imagined thing. We will sit just the two of us in the shower. What an intimate image of mother and daughter. You in the gentle water, I facing you, will gently wash your hair. Erase all your memories of the atrocities, of the horror. Will sing to you the song of the hyacinth that you now know, reminding you of an innocent, clean time of your life of stability when I sang to you lullabies. And of the rain tickling the window, I will carefully clean between your toes every speck from the tunnels. Look how far we needed to come to know what the poem is about. It's about the girls that will come back from the tunnels and will need to be cleaned. I will tell you about the moon. Remember the moon from the Hyacinth song? That shone so many nights when you were not here. I will wipe my tears off your face again. You can feel the intimacy and the closeness. The gentle water will wash them away. I will braid your hair, dress you in pajamas, just the two of us in bed, not even starting to think about others that may have come too close. And the caring hug is repeated again, and hope and love and fear and prayer that there will never be another time. And this is what I want you to note in particular about this poem, that the prayer is not for the daughter to come back. That is expressed in assurance. You will come back when you come back. The prayer is for our future. As Avital had said a minute ago, we need to be ready for everything. We need to be prepared, and we need to make sure that nothing like that will ever happen again. So, Shaul, when we start seeing budding of hope in the post-October 7th poetry, there will be more, I promise you, as we go. They start from that point, okay, horror had hit us, we are in pain, we are broken, we are not functioning, but the one thing we need to make 100% sure, that it will never happen again. I am wondering, Rabbi, if we have the luxury of some time to read one more poem, or do we need to close? What's your feeling? Do people have other programs to go to? Because our hour is over.
Okay, you're okay to stay? Yeah.
We are okay to do one more?
We can do one
Yeah.
more.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will choose carefully for you. I'm going to choose for you a poem that needs a little bit of background explanation. The expression cleared for publication in Hebrew, hutar lepirsum, are the two words used on Israeli media whenever the announcer is going to read names of soldiers fallen in action the previous night or the previous day. It oftentimes comes to us in the early morning news, and they have become the most dreaded words in Hebrew for all of us. Hutar lepirsum, cleared for publication. So when our poet Dael Rodriguez Garcia is writing his poem Cleared for Publication, his Israeli audience knows what he is referring to. But I want you to remember that the word pirsum, or its Aramaic form, pirsuma, is the biggest mitzvah of Hanukkah. We are obliged to publicize the miracle of Hanukkah, pirsuma denisa, that a Talmudic order. It's not in the Ten Commandments, it's in much later literature, but in Hanukkah, our major commandment is to place the candelabra in the window, the Chanukiah, so that we publicize the miracle. This poem was written around Hanukkah. I will show you what makes it a Hanukkah poem. And it plays on that additional meaning of the word pirsum, pirsuma. Because in this poem, Hutar lepirsum ki libenu nishbar, cleared for publication that our hearts are broken. No miracle is publicized, just the fact that our hearts are broken. Now, let this be not a simple statement for you, because in Israeli law for long years, it wasn't so clear that we are allowed to, in the open, say and show that our hearts were broken. The expectation of even bereaved families was to hold back. The expectations from soldiers when burying or attending the burial of one of their friends or more, God forbid, was to hold back tears. So when an Israeli man is saying, cleared for publication that our hearts are broken, it's a moment in Israeli culture. And in hidden places, in empty rooms, thousands of sobs are choking silently. When discussing this with the poet, he made it clear to us that this is a Talmudic reference that I'm going to read to you. Hidden Places is a reference to a Talmudic discussion of Jeremiah 13:17. If you do not heed this, my soul will cry in hidden places because of pride. Our sages explained that God has a hidden chamber where he weeps for Israel's pride, which was taken from it and given to other nations. I will stop here and just highlight for you the fact that the weeping in hidden places still, part of it is out in the open, cleared for publication that our hearts are broken. But in hidden places, we are weeping for the loss of pride, for the shame, for the fact that we were not ready, for the fact that we could be treated like this, for the fact that this was allowed to happen. Our pride was taken away. Cleared for publication, that open season was declared on us in Hebrew is the same term as a cleared for publication. We were plundered in the dark of the most precious. It is already cleared for publication that the magical shining light of our beloved faces is extinguished. And I want you to look at the 4 snapshots of television screens that I put together for you. These are all pictures that I have taken of my own TV screen as day after day the announcement of the soldiers fallen that day or the previous one are made. And you know that as soon as you are allowed to gaze, to watch at these faces, and they are all shining and beautiful, they merit the privilege to become into your living room is because they are dead. So the moment you see them, their faces are not shining. So this is a poem about light extinguished. It's an upside down Hanukkah. When the light is out, the magical shining light of our beloved face is extinguished. However, beneath the same soil, a stubborn plant is sprouting, sending roots without end, tightly grasped with love. Now here is an admission, and you could have heard it in my tone when at the beginning of the class, I addressed Saul's question by saying, don't rush so fast to hope. And this was my reaction when I saw the poem. And I was sort of ready to pick up the phone and call the poet and say, do you need absolutely to stick this last 4 lines about the plants growing and the hope, etc. so fast? Let us mourn. Can't you give us a moment there? You need to rush us into the hope. By the time we spoke and translated and went back, Hanukkah was over. And the next Jewish festival that comes is Tu B'Shvat. And on Tu B'Shvat, many people went out to the site of the Nova Festival and started planting trees. So I was wrong, and the poet was right. And he knew miraculously after the upside down Hanukkah of the light of these amazing faces extinguished, Tu B'Shvat welcome, and people will want to plant and will want to see some growth and will want to see some hope. So here is a poem that already in the midst of the pain and the loss is holding on to some hope. So I hope you find it helpful, and especially you, Shaul, since you asked. Yeah, you're okay with this one? I'm glad. I think this is a good moment for me to stop. I will still take if there are any questions before we conclude the class or comments. And if there, yes, please go ahead.
I just wanted to ask or comment that I think if you mention the poem written by the rabbi or call her rabbi, just to bring forth the idea that a rabbi wrote this, because I think it puts a lot more depth into it.
Okay. Osnat published a few poetry books and she never put the title rabbi in front of them, and I followed her. But I know, you know what? Next class we have another poem by Osnat Eldar. I will try to get her join us to one of the last two classes, and then you can ask her if she would prefer for the title to be next to her name. But thank you for the idea. I will look into it. Anybody else? So, Rabbi, I will let you conclude the class.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. What a gift to have both of you today, and another very moving, powerful class, and look forward to next week all together.
Toda Rabba, Toda Vital for coming. Toda. Thank you to all of you for taking the time to be with us through this poetry. Until we meet again later on next week. And have as joyous a Purim as one can have these days. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
Bye-bye.
Okay. There is an extra one.
Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. Let's do that.
Yeah. How are you?